So I've got in my collection 3 books from F. Scott Fitzgerald. The first one is a collection of 7 short stories, including The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I read this a couple of years ago and I loved it so much. Not only because it's such a beautiful design and a beautiful edition from Penguin. I mean, look at this, look at the papers. It's a beautiful book, but what I liked was the theme that I found running in most of the stories here, which is the idea of destiny and how sometimes it can run against or on an irrelevant tangent to what we plan for ourselves and how we perceive ourselves to be in the future. It's a very interesting book, and Fitzgerald's prose is very funny and at the same time very beautiful and very poignant. I think his writing style at times can be second to none. The second book that I have in my collection is Tender is the Night. Now, I have not read this yet, but I've heard mixed reviews about it and I'm kind of looking forward to reading it. I think I'm going to read it sometimes later this year. And finally, I think what people agree is the greatest book by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and the star of today's video is The Great Gatsby. Now, I was surprised by this book because it's a very small, slim book. It doesn't make it to 150 pages. Yeah, in this edition it's 148. And from what I heard about The Great Gatsby and everything that is packed into it, I just imagined something that was a bit more great in size, at least. But yeah, it's a very small book, and at the same time it manages to pack so many things into its 150 pages. Now, when I finished reading this book sometime last week, I was not blown away by it as I expected I would be, considering that many people consider it to be the greatest work of American literature. To be honest, I thought that if this is the greatest work of American literature, then the rest of American literature is really in trouble. I thought it did not deserve that title. I did enjoy reading it. I think I finished it in 2 sittings, and I thought that it was an interesting and tragic love story that also talked about race, gender, and class. And perhaps most importantly, it touched on the American dream and on the idea of wealth and the corruption of wealth, and sometimes the extravagance that goes into hiding uglier truths. And while all of these things were very interesting to read about, I just didn't feel that they were revolutionary enough, at least in our day, and the book did not go deeply enough into them to justify it being called the greatest work of American literature. And after I finished it, I started thinking about the characters. I think it was the ending, the last couple of sentences of the book, that made me think that there is something else in this book that I must have missed, something else besides all the themes that I have just mentioned. So I spent the next few days just thinking about the characters more, thinking about Gatsby himself and what makes him great. And as I thought more and more about it, I had the same feeling that I had once about 5 or 6 years ago when I read Heart of Darkness. I read it for the first time about 5 years ago, and I could not understand why people would consider it to be a masterpiece. I mean, yes, it did say some interesting things about colonialism, but in our day and age, that's a given. So what is it that made it a masterpiece? So I decided to give it a second chance. I read it again, and then a third time, and then a fourth time, and every time I read it, I just found a new layers to that work that just... suffice it to say that now Heart of Darkness is one of my favorite novels of all time. And I had the same feeling about The Great Gatsby. I thought that there is something else to this book that perhaps I did not focus on. Now that I know what it was, I can't believe how foolish it was of me not to notice it right from the beginning. But I think it was mainly because of this review at the back of the book. It says that it's a timeless evocation of the allure, corruption, and carelessness of wealth. And I think I focused too much on that aspect of the book and neglected the more important and really profound part of the book, which makes it a timeless and a timeless masterpiece. Reading it the second time, just like right from the beginning, it says that what made Gatsby great was his extraordinary ability to dream beyond reason and dream beyond reality. He is just the most hopeful person that you could ever come across. And everything he does in his life, or at least in the last 5 years of his life, everything else that he achieved, every single action that he takes is in order to achieve the dream that he hides in his heart. And I think it was described at one point in the novel that he was standing on the stairs to his house and looking at the people who were attending one of his most lavish parties, and he was just smiling back at them, but hiding in his heart his incorruptible dream. And it's that incorruptible dream that is at the heart of The Great Gatsby, and it is what makes Gatsby a great person. Gatsby is not only a very hopeful person, but he is also a person who is obsessed with the past. it's not enough for him to get what he wants, but he wants to get it in a way that would erase the past 5 years of his life. And as we know, this is an impossible thing to do. You can't repeat the past, even though Gatsby seems to think that you can. And it's that belief that he will be able to repeat the past and erase the last 5 years is what makes the tragic ending of this book inevitable. And when you view the book and the characters and Gatsby and Daisy and everything else with this new light, the book just took another dimension for me. I saw why a lot of people do consider it to be a timeless masterpiece. It's a very profound message there. You can think about the Great Gatsby, the word great, in a number of ways. You can think about it as an ironic way of describing Gatsby because he's a socially great person who's very rich, he throws lavish parties, and he's almost like a legend where he lives. People talk about him, speculate about him, he is great, but at the same time what goes into making that greatness is really corruption at its heart. However, I don't think this is like the most profound way to think about Gatsby and his greatness. I think it would be much more close to home if you think about it as his ability to dream. And it's that incorruptible dream that made him go to extreme lengths to build his empire, build his house, build his wealth in order to get that incorruptible dream. As for the language in this book, it's what you would expect from Fitzgerald. It's amazing prose. I can't say that it's beautiful language because that word beautiful doesn't seem right to express the way the prose in this book describes things. It's not exactly beautiful, but there is something in it. You just feel that this is the perfect way to construct sentences and describe things. Not to mention that it can be really, really funny at times. I think there was this scene that Gatsby was really nervous and he was lying against a clock and he just leans too heavily on it and it falls, but he catches it and returns it. But the way that he behaves about that incident and the way Nick, the narrator, describes it, it was so funny. I mean, the 2 times I read this book, I laughed out loud at that scene and many other scenes. More importantly, perhaps, now, being funny is a really important feature that I appreciate in a book, but more importantly to the theme of the book is that sometimes you could feel the situation that is being described in the language as if you are living it yourself. I'm not sure how he manages to do that. It's really an amazing feat. I mean, there is one chapter where Gatsby is throwing a party and the language that is used to describe the roaring party is almost roaring itself. I felt myself being in that party and feeling tired, feeling dizzy of all the drinking and all the dancing and all the jazz music and the loud and the singing and just the crazy aura of drunkenness that was going around. I could feel it. The same thing when he was describing a group of people being drunk in a flat during an afternoon. I could feel the haze of that drunkenness myself. I felt the stupor and like the oblivion that people were going in. It's not the way it was described as much as it was like the experience of reading it. It's really, really strange, but it's perfect language. And most importantly, perhaps the way it's used to describe Daisy, who can be seen as a representative of the old money. The way Daisy was described just created an unrealistic aura around her. I don't mean that she was an unrealistic character, she's a very realistic character, but I mean there was an aura around her that made Daisy live in a bubble that was impenetrable. Like no matter how much money you could make and no matter how high up the social ladder you could climb, you could never penetrate into that bubble of old money that Daisy lived in. When I was reading reviews after finishing reading it the first time, I found that a lot of people shared my first experience reading it. They were just a little bit underwhelmed, and a lot of people even went as far as saying that they really didn't enjoy reading it. And I just want to say that Scott Fitzgerald books are not plot driven. The characters are not supposed to be likable. It really pays off just to pay close attention to the way the language is used, the way the characters are sometimes being described. The narrator here, Nick, is not the most straightforward narrator. I'm not sure you can trust everything he says, and just trying to read between the lines and make conclusions of your own. I mean, all of that would really pay off. What I want to say at the end is that if you read the book for one time and had a similar experience to what I described at the beginning, you were frustrated how this could be considered a masterpiece, then please do give it a second chance and take it a little bit more slowly. And remember that Fitzgerald's stories are not really plot driven. It's not about characters that you're supposed to like and empathize with. Don't expect to feel very invested in the love story between Gatsby and Daisy. It's not about that at all. It's more of an exploration of characters and themes. And when you do read it with that in mind, I'm sure that it will be a completely different experience to you. And if you have read this book and liked it, then please do tell me, what did you like about it? Did you agree with what I said concerning thinking that this book is really at its heart about hope and obsession with the past, or do you think it's something else? What do you think The Great Gatsby is all about? Why is he great? Do you agree with what I said, or do you have a different opinion? Just let me know about your experience reading the book in the comments below. There is so much more to say about these 150 pages, much more than I can pack into this YouTube video. So I'm gonna conclude here, and if you like this video, then please do give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoy this kind of thing, consider subscribing to my channel. And finally, if you have been watching so far, thank you. Cheers.